Ricki, welcome into the back room.
Great to be with you, Andy.
I am so excited to talk with you. I've been a big fan for such a long time. I want to go back because people know you as an adult for the most part. I'm always fascinated to ask people about their childhood, what kind of kids they were. So, what kind of kid were you, and when did you first realize that you wanted to perform?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to think that I came out a star. Like I was definitely ready for all eyes on me as a little girl. Like this, my grandmother was sort of my mentor and like my guiding light. And she exposed me to the theater and the arts in New York City growing up. And I saw Annie when I was 7 years old. Now I was not a small child. I was a more of a round child. And I went and saw that show when I was a little girl with my grandma Sylvia and my sister. And I remember where I was sitting in the audience.
Grandma Sylvia.
She passed when I was 9 years old, but she left quite a mark on me.
Mm,
And I saw those little girls that were not much older than me performing their hearts out in that musical. And I had like I want to be one of those girls. I was so just that moment of like, that is what I want to do. I don't know how. And my grandmother was the one who told me you can do anything. You're the most talented. You're the most beautiful. You're the most special. And I wasn't. I wasn't any of those things, but she put in me like a belief in myself, I guess.
that's
Died of
awesome.
cancer when she was 58 years old and I was not.
Mm,
And, I didn't have a great maternal mom. I did not have the supportive mom that I wish I had. I look at friends and see the relationship they have with their parents, and I did not have that.
mhm.
But I was very popular, but I wasn't the most liked. I wasn't the most likely to succeed I mean, I just was like in with the crowd. I didn't have any enemies. I was well liked. And, I was on the track team because my best friend was. Like, I wasn't the fastest. I threw the shot put in ninth grade. Like, I mean, it was just, I was trying so hard to kind of keep up with my best friend who was valedictorian and, in madrigals and in choir and played what did she play? The French horn. So I had to play, so I was more of like a wannabe, but,
But you had a confidence.
I had a confidence and I
And
had a
that's
really like lovely childhood. I mean,
mhm.
yes, I have the story of being sexually molested as a little girl, as many people have also sadly experienced. That ended up being a gift for me, believe it or not.
Mm,
That's what caused me to be heavy set and gain a lot of weight through childhood. I was a very heavy adolescent. And that's what got me the role in Hairspray.
mhm,
So like my whole career was launched because of my size. And my
mm.
size, I wouldn't have been that size had I not had that experience when I was a little girl that caused me to turn to food. So it's a wild ride that I have. I don't come from money or nepotism or any sort of handout in this business. Um, and yeah, I mean, I love kind of my story of just like John Waters plucking me from complete obscurity and opening up every door. And it's an amazing, abundant, beautiful career that I've had for almost 4 decades now.
It's interesting what you mentioned about the silver lining of being assaulted as a child. I believe that life is like a chain, and it's just a series of links. And some links are amazing, and some links are horrible. But you can't break that chain because it's circuitous. It's like it's just what your life is. And one link in one way or another leads to the next link. And hopefully by the time you're done and you meet your maker or wherever you go, you're satisfied with that chain. So, but we all have struggles and trauma in our lives and could look at those links and everything just is a step in that journey.
Absolutely. Yeah, really. And I mean, you can't have the ecstasy without the agony.
Right.
They go hand in hand, and I use that analogy in birth. I do a lot of birth work,
Hmm.
documentaries about women's
Hmm.
reproductive health and birth, and that's one of the lines in the film. It's like you can't, when you have a natural birth, when you have that experience of being connected in that experience, you're not numbed from it, you're not saved from it by the Western medicine. You are in it and you push through, and it's like you go to this euphoric state. I mean, I can speak for myself. I had this natural home birth not far from where Adrienne lived and
Mm-hmm.
worked
Right.
right next door. It's so crazy that we have that connection, because I look back, that was my home for many years.
Mm-hmm.
I loved that area. But anyway, I had my birth there, and it's like, yeah, it was painful, and it was pushing me to the limit. And then you go to this place of just pure euphoria, that oxytocin rush that I got
Mm-hmm.
to have. And anyway, I went off on a tangent, but yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. And it's like all of these chapters I've had, whether it was witnessing 9/11 there, I was living,
Mm-hmm.
and that, changed the trajectory of my entire life, my relationship, my partnership at that time, my job. I walked away from that job. I walked away from New York City, and I started anew. And had I not experienced that, I don't think any of those changes would have happened.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I met Adrienne a week after 9/11. And 9/11, for a lot of people, made them reassess their lives, right? What am I doing with my life? Like I could be gone in a moment,
Yeah.
in a flash. And she had decided that she was just in a never-ending series of bad actor romances, and that she needed to meet who she thought would be a normal guy. That
Yeah.
that became me.
Yeah.
I had just ended something, and we went on Match.com, and we met on Match.com, which she would never do. I had done a little bit of online dating, but she needed to break out of her very isolated actor world. And so we had this great love affair in the fall of 2001, while the city around us was, I mean, we were both
Paralyzed.
grieving as well because
Yeah.
of 9/11, but it was this strange dichotomy. But so I totally get what you're saying. Like out of 9/11, even beauty can come and lasting joy, And so that's what I'm saying. Like I try to just to never look at anything without trying to find that silver lining,
Mhm.
for
It's
my.
always there. It's, oh,
Yeah.
it takes time. Like I lost my second husband to bipolar disorder and suicide in 2017. And that, I mean, up until the fire, up until losing my house, like that was the hardest thing to try to kind of make sense of, and how, like, figure out a way to move on. How do I move on when this was my future? My future was
Mhm.
person. I had bought this piece of property in Malibu that we were going to be there forever and ever, and then that totally shifted. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but it was a gift. I mean, the relationship wasn't meant to be forever. I got so many lessons from it. I learned so much about myself. I grew so much as a human, and learned about mental health. And yeah, it was a blessing. And yeah, but it's like you go through it. And I've been one of those people that I've been a public figure since I'm 18 years old, and I've chosen to be an open book. I always have
Right.
been, and I don't know any other way. I get strength, I get support from the masses by sharing what I'm going through, whether it's my, hair falling out, or the list goes on and on. But wow, I did not know that you met Adrienne. Did you know who she was? See, this
No,
turn into
no,
an interview. This is when I turn into a talk show host.
no, it's okay.
No, you
No,
had
it's
no
funny
idea.
when I always get a little, like when I interview someone who is a talk show host or does this for a living. It's always kind of funny because they almost always go into that default mode. When I interviewed Jake Tapper when he put out his first book, I think it was his first book or maybe second book. Like 5 minutes in, he starts asking me questions. I'm like, "Oh, look at this! Jake Tapper is now doing the interview," and he
I'm
laughed. And we,
curious.
yeah.
I'm so curious.
No, no, no. I like when there's a back and forth like that. No, I had no idea who she was because in the '90s, I had three small children. I always like to say I didn't know Hal Hartley from Hal Linden. Like that was not my scene. Like I may have walked past the Angelica, but I never went in. Like I was just busy at home, diapering kids. And so she did when she posted her listing, there was no photo. It was a fake name.
Oh,
And she
okay.
she as a brilliant writer, she wrote a brilliant profile. And she said something like, I'm an actor, and I've been known to turn a few heads in my day. And it was very like very low key, but enough to make me go, wow, she seems really interesting. And uh, and then it turned out, she had made up her name. She lied about a couple other things because she was people knew her. She was prominent,
Right. Oh yeah.
and I
You know, it was a
guess
huge Hal Hartley fan.
yeah. So, but I tell this story in my documentary about her. My friend Cliff, um, who is married and has, like a lot of your married friends, often lives through their single friends at times.
Right.
So every
Yeah.
time we get together, he'd be like, "Who are you dating? You dating anyone?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm dating someone actually. I don't know, some." He goes, "What? Who is she?" I was like, "You don't know who she is. Just some actor." He goes, "Well, who is she?" And I said, "You're not gonna know who she is. She's like some little indie actor from whatever." I didn't know who she was. And he says, "Just give me a name." And I go, "Adrienne Shelly." And like he's eating, but he kind of drops his mouth and his fork, and he's like, "You're dating
Yeah.
Adrienne Shelly?" And I said, "Yeah. Why? Why is that a big deal?" And he said to me, "Ostroy, most days I feel sorry for you. Today's not one of them."
That's so funny. Yeah. It was a
And then of course I got to know, like we would travel and people in the airports
yeah.
people would come up to her, and young women would say, "You changed my life with the movie Trust." Like, and I was like, "Wow." So then I started to go through her work,
Yeah.
but I knew her as Adrienne Levine, the cute little Jewish girl from
From
Long
Long
Island.
Island.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Wow.
And I was happy about that because I know a lot of celebrities. I've been in situations where you could date somebody perhaps, and like I feel like it was the way it was supposed to be with Adrienne, where I didn't know who she was. I knew her as a person. I didn't
Yeah.
know her for the work she did, and so I wasn't enamored or impressed. It was nothing like that. It was just she was cute as hell. She was the funniest woman I ever met. And so we
Yeah.
just always laughed and we had a great time. And then we had a kid a couple of years later, and um,
Gorgeous
that
young
little unit
woman.
was
Um,
great. And then obviously the tragedy that occurred. But even with that, like I look at my daughter Sophie, who's 22 now, and it's like she came from this union,
right.
even though the
Right.
the marriage ended in disaster because of tragedy. So I have always, I think I was going to say before, I think it's if your default is glass half full versus glass half empty, you can get to that space.
Yeah.
If you kind of go through life as a Debbie Downer, then everything there often isn't a silver lining. It's
Right.
just
The
it's
dark
just
cloud just follows you. You're right.
yeah,
And I came into this world as an optimist, as someone who absolutely sees the glass always half full.
yeah, me too.
And that's just my nature. That's my default. My sister is kind of the opposite, and it's just the two of us. And we were both, raised in the same household.
Hmm.
I was firstborn, and, she's had a really tough life. And for probably a lot of reasons, but I think a lot of it is perspective and choice. Like I choose to find the happy way out, to find the,
Hmm.
and all things,
A lot of it is genetics too. Like it sounds like your grandma Sylvia was a special kind of person who instilled in you at a very early age some tools
Mhm.
and in that confidence and uh, desire to achieve that to not just look at others who've achieved but say, hey, I could do that too.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things are important. We all need a champion, and sometimes we don't have it. I mean, my family situation is very similar to yours. I was not close to my mother or father.
You
My
weren't.
No.
Wait, so where did you grow up?
I grew up in Far Rockaway, Queens.
Okay,
And
okay.
so it was a pretty dysfunctional. So like my dysfunction started way early, and my brothers are very much similar situation, like what you're saying with your sister. They very different from me, and from political on down, and we came from the same parents, and we're very different people. But I think a lot of it is genetic in the sense that you could pull your makeup from Uncle Harry or cousin Louie, or just like you can get size or other facial features or whatever from some relative somewhere that's in the mixed. And I always look to my grandfather, Izzy, who I feel like of all the people I've known in my family, I'm most like him from what I gathered from my mother when he was a younger man, his sense of adventure, his sense of accomplishment. He was very successful, but then he got broke, and then he was successful again, and he just liked the adrenaline and the accomplishment of life. And so I think maybe Sylvia is somebody who you've gotten a lot of your stuff from, you know.
Then I give her a lot of credit, and she, you know, I believe in destiny and fate. I am one of those. I believe in also afterlife. I believe we're connected to souls that have gone on. I don't know how you feel, if you feel Adrienne's spirit, if you feel a connection to her when you see a butterfly or whatever. For me, I've had like confirmation from legit talented mediums, like of channeling and all that. But Sylvia had passed away on it was a 10-year anniversary of her death that Hairspray, my first role, premiered. So literally on the 10-year anniversary of her death was my grand sort of opening to the world as an actress, you know? And I like to believe that that's connected, that she somehow is involved or aware or, you know, cheering me on in some other form. You know, no one can prove to me otherwise. So I choose to
Yeah.
all that, you know.
You know, it's funny. Do you remember John Edwards?
Of course,
Okay.
I know him. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's on my
Yeah, I
show.
know him a little bit too. When his show was like at its peak popularity, at night, like Adrienne and I would get into bed, she'd read a book, I'd watch John Edwards. And I'd be like, "Well, look at this guy. Like look what he's doing. He's talking to dead people." And she'd look at me like, "He's not talking to dead people, you idiot." And so I don't know what I believe, but I remember uh I remember saying to her, like, "But just look what he just did." She goes, "Look, can I just say something to you? If he's talking to people, you know how John Edwards would always be like, I'm getting the letter E. The letter E. Is there anyone in the audience?" And someone would raise their hand and go, "My Aunt Edna." And he'd be like,
Right.
Edna. Adrienne looked at me. She goes, "If he's talking to dead people, why can't they just give him their full name?
Full name.
Why are they
Yeah,
just giving him an initial?"
she's right. She's right.
And I was like, "Oh, okay, that's a good point." But
Right.
yeah, I don't know what's out there. Maybe there is, you know, but in general, I tend to believe that people are like iPhones. They're great when they're working, but when they're dead,
Yeah.
they're just like a fucking paperweight. That's all it is, right?
Yeah.
So who knows? I think the older I get, the more I'm open to different things happening, maybe.
Right. I mean, because we don't know. We don't know. So it's what we choose to think or believe. And I, you know, with Christian, with the death of my partner, Christian Evans, you know, I was really lost. This was 2017. I mean, my dog kept me alive. Like, I don't know about you. I mean, you had your daughter, you had to keep going and put
Right.
one foot in front of the other. As painful as it was, like, I didn't know how I was going to continue. And I had two kids as well. They're step kids to him. But it was a medium. It was a psychic medium who has now passed away, a woman in her 80s that did a reading over the phone almost a year on the year anniversary of his death.
Mm.
She is the one who set me on a path of healing because that experience of of her channeling him for an hour. And I know it sounds crazy, but I have
No, I get it.
have it on my phone, and it was like the knowing that I needed in order to know that he's okay, to get some answers to, you know, some questions I had and be able to really start to get to be okay, you know? It was a year of just, you know, debauchery and self-medicating and hanging with the wrong crowd. And I mean, it just was like lost. And that was super helpful for me.
Well, sometimes you need that stuff. I remember after Adrian died, Rosanna Arquette said to me, "I have a medium who I want you to talk with." And for the most part, I'm like a skeptical New Yorker, right? Like,
Right.
okay. But this was not a year. This was like maybe a few weeks, couple of weeks after it happened. And I was wondering, like, you know, did she suffer? When did she die? Was it at the beginning, at the end? I had a lot of questions. And Rosanna said, just talk to this woman. And I looked her up online, and she was like on her website, it was like medium to the stars.
Oh, really?
I was like,
You have
I
like
was
a
like,
one 800 number and
yeah, I was like, this is getting worse by the minute. But I was like, okay. So there I was at midnight one night calling 9 o'clock to LA. And I'm thinking, what, where did my life take this turn?
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
bed. I'm in bed at midnight calling a medium to the
You're like rolling
stars.
your eyes as you're like waiting, right?
But it was a similar experience. She gave me answers that perhaps I needed to get, and it put me at ease. I said, okay, I'm going to accept what she said and move on with this particular issue.
Right.
I'm not going to obsess on it. And so I think it's just, when we're vulnerable, which is, at our worst usually, especially if you after you have tragedy like we both experienced. I think it's good that there are people around that will help you stay, like almost like the things at the bowling alley for kids that just knock you back.
You're out of the gutter.
Yeah, right, when your ball starts to go into the
Yeah.
next, those guardrails are important because otherwise we can lose our minds. When I mean, some people or a lot of people are lucky; they kind of just flatline through life. They have a little bit of
Are they
problems here.
lucky? Are they lucky? I
Well,
don't. I-
that's a really interesting question. I wouldn't want to be that because I've experienced amazing highs and amazing lows, and I take it all. It's like one big soup. But there are a lot of people. I think most people in this country just want to get up, feed the kids, go to work, come home,
Yeah.
watch, Succession, go to
Jeopardy,
yeah,
7 o'clock, and Wheel of Fortune right
and then go
afterwards.
to bed
Yeah.
and get up and do it. They like that consistency. They're not overachievers. They're content with being content.
I had this
And
same conversation with a friend of mine, Colin O'Brady. I don't know if you know who he is. We just walked across. He did a solo trip across Antarctica. He's this he's this incredible, incredible human that I know. And he and I, it was so wild. We had this very profound talk about this very subject, about
mm,
he looks at his days at like the tens and the ones, and you can't have the tens, kind of like the agony and ecstasy. You can't have the tens without the ones. And he said most people are in the four, fives, and sixes all the time. It's like
right,
sort of mundane, kind of normal, like not but boring, for lack of a better word, life. And it's like, I'd much rather be the person striving to have that 10. Yes, you have to have the one, but you get to have the 10. And we had this conversation. He was on I had a podcast for a couple of years. He was on my podcast in my home in Malibu on via Zoom the day before the fire, like literally the
mm,
afternoon. We talked at noon the day before on the 6th of January. And it was the next day that my house was gone and my whole life changed. And just that conversation that we had was very similar to what we're saying right now. And I am the kind of person that I want those tens, and I'll get through the ones, but I love the extraordinary twists and turns that my life has taken,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's maybe it's not for everyone, but that's for both of us. It's what makes life interesting. Like I'm watching the Olympics, right? And every time I watch the Olympics and you see these skiers or whatever doing these incredible things, my first thought is always, how did they learn how to do that? Right? Like the first time they went and did that, they probably fell, maybe broke an arm. Like to get to that level of achievement, they had to have practiced this shit over and over and over again and gone through broken bones and trauma and maybe desire to like just give it up because it's too complicated. And that's what life is. It's like if you ever want to achieve anything great, you have to go through a pile of shit. That's just
Get
the
back
way.
up.
Yeah, that's just the way it works. So I want to ask you about the fires because it was just a year ago, and I was telling you before we got on that I was in Malibu yesterday. I could not believe what I saw, and I got very emotional because I've been reading about reading up on your personal story with your home, which I want to ask you about in a minute, and I know how I feel about my own home and my own memories, and it's like when you see just miles of just concrete slabs where there used to be, or you see the driveway, or you see a doorway, like just something that remained to somebody's home. I got emotional looking at that because it is just so tragic and stark to see it. Especially if you remember what it looked like all along the water. I mean, you lost your home um, uh, after your husband Ross and you desperately tried to save it. I can't imagine what that was like. Fire is fucking terrifying. we saw everything on TV, but I always wonder, like, what was it like to just be on the ground in your home watching all, I just looking. So tell us about those first moments when you realized how bad it was getting, and when you ultimately decided that it was time to go.
So let me just tell you that the fire started in Temescal Canyon, which is 12 miles from where my house is.
Mhm.
So 12 miles when I'm in between Temescal right now. I'm staying in the Palisades, renting a house, and it's a dense, highly populated area. Like there's houses everywhere. The idea that it could have gone in less than 24 hours from Temescal Canyon to my house and beyond it still doesn't process
Mhm.
my brain that even happened. But it was about 10:30 in the morning. I was basically, I wasn't working. I was doing my little podcast, as I told you. And so I was home all the time. My husband is an attorney. He worked most days at home. He had an office in our house. So I saw the smoke and I saw the alert, and we had just had another fire scare 3 weeks prior, a different fire called the Franklin Fire, it consumed Pepperdine University,
Mhm.
just a few miles up from us, just like 2 miles up. And so that fire, I was at the Taylor Swift concert. I was at the very last night of the Eras tour in Vancouver on
Mm.
that fire in December. It was December 8th, I think. And my friend was staying in my house with my dog. So I had to get my neighbor to go because she wasn't answering her phone. This is at midnight, 1 in the morning, when they were all evacuated. And so I, had to get my neighbor to go pound on my door to get her awake, to get out, I made her get my crypto wallet. I made her get, like just a few pieces of jewelry, get out. And she got out, but that was just 3 weeks before. So we had a system in place. We had a fire fire defense system, which was like a motor that you used your pool water with fire hoses that you spread out along your property, and basically you use it to fight off the embers that come from the
Mm.
wind. So we were trained to use this thing. We had deployed it once. I had it deployed when I was away in Vancouver. I had my firefighter friend come and do that. So we knew kind of the drill on that morning. It's like, do we deploy it? Do we deploy it? Yes, we did. And so we were planning to stay. Like the whole plan was to just, if the fire comes through in that rare event, it basically takes about a half an hour to go over your house, kind of thing. You go in your house for during that half hour, and then you come out and basically put everything out, spot fires. And we were planning to stay. We had a friend that named Kirby Kotler, who came and helped us during the day. And it just was probably around 3 or 4 o'clock that the winds, it just got to a different level.
Mm.
I mean, it was like tornadoes that were like going like one way, then the other way. I mean, it was so out of control. And as it got dark, and I remember I had taken my neighbor's dog, I had their dog, I had another neighbor's dog in my house. And, we were trying to get gas for the equipment to keep it, because it runs on, like, I have an electric car. So we were trying to siphon gas. I mean, it was so chaotic and crazy. And then it was about 7:30 at night that we decided we're not staying. Like, there's no way we could stay. And both my neighbor and I came to the same conclusion. We were separated, and I had her dog, and the reason I'm having this flashback is I'm telling this story and I'm not telling it very well. I'm sort of all over the place. She and I and her husband, we all had dinner just on Saturday night, and it was the first time we're rehashing what had happened from her perspective and our perspective. And it was about 7:30 at night that we just switched gears and said, we got to get out of here. Like, this is, and the fire department, she had gone down to PCH and at Duke's, we lived above Duke's. And they were like, what are you doing here? We're leaving. Like, the firefighters were out of there. They didn't even go to our street ever.
Mm.
Three
Wow.
days, they never went up our street. And it was in that moment about 7 at night. It was pitch black and the winds were crazy. And the sprinklers were deployed on my roof, and the fire retardant was deployed. And I just was like staring in my closet. I'm like, what do I take? Like, what do I take here? I was like kind of frozen. And I laugh at it now, but I grabbed 4 different pairs of jeans in the exact same wash. Why did I need 4? Like I had one carry on.
You can never have enough jeans. It's
Like,
my
what was
motto.
I thinking? I didn't take photo albums. I didn't take my Hairspray memorabilia. I didn't like the list of things that I should have taken. I'm still kicking myself over. I
Mm.
still, oh, it pains me that I didn't know what to do in that moment. But, you know, we left. Like in the end, my husband followed me out in his car. He has terrible eyesight, especially at night. So I was super freaked out about him driving, but he followed me slowly, and we went over the ridge. We went to Ojai instead of going down to PCH. We went on the ridge, like it's called Payuma. These streets on the top of the Santa Monica Mountains, and there were boulders in the street and trees everywhere. So we're like literally like dodging in an obstacle course. It took us a really long time to get out of there. And then I was in shock. I mean, we were in total shock. We didn't
Sure.
know whether our house would make it. And it was the next morning that Kirby, the same man that was kind of helping us that night, he went back up and he has a video. I was just showing it to my neighbor the other night for the first time. She hadn't seen it. And it was him going up my street, and turning and going to my house. And my house was still in flames. And he starts screaming, fuck,
Mm.
fuck. And he was crying. And he's like, I'm so sorry, Ricki. Like he tried to save my house. It was, it was not nothing. But my neighbor, the one we had dinner with, their house survived.
Well, I was going to ask you because one of the things that I also found very startling is that you see like these houses every so often that just like the only house that's standing amidst everything else that burned down. Is that because they were built differently or just the wind moved in a I mean,
We
it
don't
is
know.
shocking to see.
And I'm in this neighborhood, as I showed you. Look, that neighborhood across the way. Can you see that's just beyond the Getty Villa? Those
Right.
houses
Hmm.
are completely fine.
Right.
So how did it jump that entire neighborhood to
Mm.
get to where I lived? I don't, it baffles me. I've been looking and trying to look at like the map and see, it doesn't make sense. I don't know. Both neighbors on either side of my house survived, but most of the houses in my neighborhood, I'd say 70% of my neighbors are gone.
Mm.
And in the end, for us, it has been a blessing because we were able to move to New York. Like we were able to, first of all, I had insurance. So my premium was $100,000 a year. That's how much I paid for my insurance. So when you pay that kind of money, you get a policy that pays you substantially.
Right.
So I was considered made whole, or, obviously I lost all my artwork. I lost things that
Right.
are priceless to me. But as far as a monetary value, I did better than most people, and I was paid right away. I got a public adjuster. I hired someone, this great guy who handled all of that for me. And I think being a public figure, I think the fact that I really documented my house and the build of my house and what was in the house, they didn't mess with me, and they gave us
Mm.
a check right away. We were able to buy an apartment in New York. So I didn't want to even be here in LA. Like
Mm.
I just didn't want to be here with the
Sure.
toxicity, with the sadness, with like just I wanted to have a distraction. And I'm really proud of my husband and me for making that decision to say, let's get out of here. Let's go. Let's do a new adventure. And
Mhm.
New York has been so good to us. And now we're back, and we're going to have the best of both worlds. We're going to rebuild.
Mhm.
We signed with a building company. It's a prefab custom house building company. They use a robot to build the houses, which is crazy. It's
Mm.
really wild. But they say once we get the permits, it'll take 8 months to build our house. We're doing an ADU and we're doing a garage. So we're going to have like a beautiful, it's going to be great. And our gardens,
Wow.
that's the other thing. Our garden, I had a very special garden, and almost all of it survived.
Mm. Well, in keeping with our conversation earlier about silver linings, something crazy happened a year after that fire.
Oh, the pictures, yeah.
Yeah, a woman is at a flea market in Pasadena, and she contacts you because she found a box of your
Like,
photos. That's
that's
crazy.
my life is crazy. This happens all the time to me, stuff like this. And yeah, so I had dozens and dozens of, home, like
Hmm.
all my videos and stuff of my kids, because my kids are born pre iCloud and iPhones. They're born in 97 and '01. So, my grandparents' photo albums. I mean, I had like so much stuff that I didn't digitize. And so I got this random reach out on social media. Does anyone know how to get in touch with Ricki Lake? And in 5 seconds, this woman connected with me. She was in the Pasadena flea market. She likes to paint from random photos. She bought this box of photos, and it's literally dozens and dozens of baby pictures of me, of my kids with me. and my ex-husband. And yeah, so she got him back to me. And it was just one of the most amazing mitzvahs ever.
That is, I remember reading about it at the time, thinking, Jesus, like,
Right?
because it just sort of fit my own philosophy on silver lining, and like there can always be something good to come out of something horrible. Let's talk about your work for a bit. You mentioned Hairspray before. You were a teenager, and that changed your life overnight. When you think back on that moment, what do you remember feeling more than anything else?
I mean, it was like not real. It was like this is not real. Like I wanted to be a star. As I told you, I came out into this world like wanting to be famous, wanted all eyes on me. And here I am, this 200-pound ingenue, you know, and it was so widely like accepted that this girl could get the guy and win the dance contest.
Hmm.
It was so believable, and it was so, and it's very much like Tracy Turnblad becomes famous, overnight. That's what happened to me. It was like my life was imitating this art. And the tragedy, that went with it is that my co-star Divine died 8 days after the movie opened, like
Right.
a week later. And he was 42 years old, and he just like didn't wake up. Went to sleep. He was doing an episode of Married with Children, and he didn't wake up. And so that was so tragic. It was so he was on such a rise in his career, and this was John's, of course, his big, critically acclaimed darling movie. And so, you know, it was just a lot of mixed emotions, but my life changed dramatically. I started working nonstop. I remember going to the Academy Awards the next year. I was performing there, having everyone from Tom Cruise to Demi Moore and Bruce Willis and Meg all coming at me, loving my debut in Hairspray. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was like all my dreams coming true at once.
Mhm. And were you able to appreciate John Waters' genius at
I
that time?
then no, I mean he was just a strange guy with a weird mustache. I didn't get it, and he didn't want me to see his earlier work. I had never heard of him before I did the movie. I didn't know who Divine was. And he made me promise I wouldn't watch any of the movies. I couldn't see Pink Flamingos until after we finished filming because he didn't want anything to like change my performance in any way.
Hmm.
But I soon learned, not only like he's just a brilliant human. Like, I mean, there's no one like him. There's no
No.
one like him. And he will only do the work that he creates in his own mind. He writes it all long form. I mean, he just has his way about him. He's a brilliant visual artist, photographer, his concepts and his just take on life and his loyalty to his friends and his family and his muses. I mean, I'm so grateful to have had him not only pick me, but kind of protect me in a way. He really was very conscious about instilling in me like just how to navigate this crazy ride of this business. And I think he's the reason that I've managed to stay really grounded and very much the same person that I was back then.
So your sense of identity kind of changed, or that kid who popped out of the womb who wanted to be a star and now became a star as a teenager, did rather than perhaps change your identity, did it cement it for you?
I mean, I definitely felt like, damn, I'm a manifester. Like,
Right.
wow, I
I
got the
made this shit
power.
happen.
I mean, it is amazing because I don't have a backup plan.
Right.
Like, I don't know what I would have done if this hadn't panned out,
Mm.
for me. Um, yeah, like I told you, I don't come from like my dad was a pharmacist, my mother was a stay-at-home mom and a narcissist and profoundly unhappy woman, like a very, very unhappy, uneducated. I mean, it breaks my heart, like that she didn't get to follow her dreams, whatever they were. But I feel like in every way I've managed to like do all the things that I've wanted to do and then some, like to become a documentary filmmaker and to make films that are actually changing people, impacting people. It's beyond what I ever would have imagined or hoped for myself.
Well, let's talk about that, because your first doc was called "The Business of Being Born," which took you in a very different world. What was it that first pulled you toward that subject? And how did it change you personally at that time and since?
So I'm a type A Virgo. I'm like a planner. I like, and a manifester. I already told you that. But it was back, I'd had my first son in 97, and it was around the time that I was planning to get pregnant with my first child. I had had like a woman have this beautiful birth story. And she was like, I saw her like the next day after she gave birth, she had this perfect baby in her arms. She was home, and she told me about a birth center at St. Luke's Roosevelt, which is no longer St. Luke's Roosevelt. Like all the hospitals, St. Vincent's is gone. Like the city is so different.
Right.
I basically heard her great birth story with midwives, and I was like, I want that. Like I'll have what she's having. And I ended up getting pregnant like the next month, the first time I tried. And I went to that midwifery group, and I tried to have my baby in the birth center at St. Luke's Roosevelt. And with that birth, I didn't progress according to their timeline. My water broke, and I made the mistake of telling them. So that puts you on a clock of you need to progress a certain amount. So, first time moms, they can take days to go into labor. That's totally normal. But when you're in the hospital setting, get a tissue. The clock was ticking. And so I was given what I consider to be unnecessary intervention from that. I was able to have a vaginal birth with my son, but I didn't get to have the natural birth that I had wanted. And so it was years later when I was going to have my second son, I was like, I'm going to have this baby differently and on my own terms. And that's when I got into that world of just the art of birth. And I started going to these conferences at the Open Center. And I met Ina May Gaskin, and I heard her speak, and Michelle Odent, who was this very famous French obstetrician. And it just kind of blew my mind. Like I wasn't someone who ever studied. I wasn't a great academic, I just, nothing got me, like inspired me. And then this world of natural birth and midwifery, the midwifery model of care, it just, something clicked with me. And I just felt it was not being talked about, like doulas and their role for women, how labor can be cut in half, having a doula present. Anyway, so I got a bug up my ass. And it was in the combination of me getting to have this birth experience of a home birth, water birth in my apartment, but then also 9/11 happening. And that was, like you said, in that moment, you have this epiphany of like, wait, is this what my life is? Like, this is my legacy. I'm going to die here. And this is, I just had that moment of being on the roof of my building at 302 West 12th Street and watching the towers fall and like all of it right in front of me. And I said, if I live through this, I want to do something that's more impactful than my talk show. My talk show was impactful in a lot of ways, but I wanted to do something that was more personal to me. Like, what do I care about? Where can I make a difference? Where, and that was the world I wanted to explore was, midwives and how like the sacrifices that they make for, and how women are profoundly changed when they can birth on their own, when they can, really witness their own power, that stays with you well beyond motherhood,
Yeah.
So that was that's the origin story of that film. But that film I consider to be my life's work. Like that, by far it's the thing I'm most proud of what I've done in my career.
So that's the thing about docs, is that they become part of you, because it's often about either something that happened to you or a subject that you're very passionate about. You also produced, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say it was a calling. It was
Yeah.
beyond, like I
Right.
studied, it was $450,000 that I had to put up all the money. And my partner, Abby Epstein, my director, brilliant director, we did this, and it was like, I had to do this. I didn't know it was gonna land. I didn't know it was gonna have this like 20-year, I mean, it's been 20 something years, and it's still the seminal film that people watch when they're having a baby. It's incredible. I never anticipated that. I just needed to do it. And for you, I would imagine you needed to tell this story, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, mine started as a book, and then after a while, I was like, "Why am I writing a book?" She was a filmmaker. I'm gonna make a movie, and I had no experience. I mean, I produced one film prior to that, which she wrote, but it was a calling. I mean, that's a great way to explain it. Like, and I have enough confidence for 100 people, so I was like, I will go do it. I will go do this, and somehow was able to walk into HBO and sit down with the two co-presidents of the doc division and
Sheila and Evans then? Was Sheila?
No, it was Nancy and Lisa.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We're in." Yeah.
Had you seen the the killer? Had you gone and had that?
For the film, I did. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I know when you went to sell it, like, had you gone to have you had you shot that footage of
No, no, no. In fact, when I met with them, I said, this is something I'm considering doing. I said, but I know that, true crime is a big deal in cable these days, and I want you to know that I may decide not to do that. So if you buy into this, you got to know that it may not come with that. And they were
Yeah.
like, we get it, we get it. And then I
Wow.
decided to do it. They were great to work with. HBO was amazing,
Yeah,
and
no, HBO passed on my documentary. They all passed. None of them wanted to be a part of it. And we did end up selling it, but we sold it for less than it cost to make. We never broke even. It wasn't about that, but it would have been nice. The other films that I've made, it would have been nice to have had something to help us make these, because they're so hard to make.
they are hard to make, but it is such an important medium, and growing in popularity. I mean, unfortunately, there's a tendency these days to largely be limited to true crime and celebrity biopics.
Right.
It is a calling. It's just the best way to describe it. And you also exec produced Weed the People about medical marijuana. And so clearly docs are now part of your DNA. Are you working on any others now, or do you plan to?
I am not working on any right now. Like I feel like embarrassed, but I don't want to be embarrassed. Right now, I consider myself to be a lady of leisure. And I think I told you that when I saw you at the restaurant. Like,
There is nothing wrong with that. My motto for the last 25 years has been work is highly overrated.
I'm just in a place of like contentment.
Yeah.
Like, I think if something came at me, an idea or an opportunity, I am open. Like
Which it will, because that's the way it works. It comes in cycles. But
I'm not hungry to like stay relevant. I'm very proud of like the different areas I've been able to achieve. I won the Emmy for my talk show work. My documentaries have made their mark. My, John Waters days, like I've done really cute roles and acting things I'm proud of. Yeah, I'm kind of wanting, especially, I'm having to rebuild my house. I'm like definitely busy,
good.
but
Well, you've also been through a lot of shit, and so having had that kind of career, you've been successful on many fronts. You don't have to apologize to get to a certain part of life, a certain age, and say like, "Fuck it, I'm just hanging, I'm chilling." Especially if you can afford it, that's part of working like an animal your whole life. Like, if you get to a place where that paid off and you can enjoy life in a different way, especially as you're recovering from loss of a spouse, loss of a home, other trauma, personal trauma. Nothing wrong with that. I
It
mean,
does feel weird. Like, you're like, what are you working on these days? I'm like, kind of nothing. Like, really nothing.
working on myself.
I'm working, and I'm not even working on that. I like where I'm at. I'm feeling really good. I feel really good in my body. Like, because I was on this health kick when I was living in Malibu. I was intermittent fasting, keto, hiking every day, Pilates 4 days a week. I was like slamming. And, now I live in New York and I go out to dinner at 8 o'clock at night at Cook Shop. And, I have these decadent, amazing meals, and I'm not hiking. There's no mountains to climb in New York City, but I've managed to kind of keep my body like feeling good and strong and healthy. And I'm really happy. Like, I'm really in a happy, joyful place despite the world. I mean, it's like, there's like my little bubble, and then there's the world that just feels like, we are collapsing on ourselves every day. And I know you cover a lot of that in what you do with your podcast. I'm focusing on joy and play and gratitude. Like, I wake up every day just like so grateful for another day of general peace,
Yeah.
and quiet,
Which is a lot today. Like, if you can wake up and just feel some joy, given what we're all dealing with out there politically, there's something to be said about that, because it is stressful and it's so much anxiety. I realized a few weeks ago that like I was denying myself admitting how anxious I am about shit, and because being a glass half full person, being an optimist, being a fighter, having gone through trauma, it's like, we're gonna be fine. And I woke up one day and I was like, I'm really feeling like shit today over this because it's never ending. It doesn't stop. You know, from
And
the
I
minute
have
you get
I have
up
a
to the minute
trip
you go to
booked to
sleep.
Mexico. I'm supposed to go to Mexico, not until October, but I'm already like wanting to cancel it because
El Mencho.
it's so scary. Like
Great
it's
name, by the way, for a drug
right.
trafficker.
I know, right?
He's a drug trafficker, but he's a
Perfect
mensch. He's a
typecasting.
mensch.
He's
An El Mensch. He's an El Mensch. It's
awful.
even
Those
better.
people are trapped on vacation.
I
They're like
know, it's crazy.
down in their hotel rooms.
I would be panicking. That's where like
I
optimistic Andy would go out the window. I'd be like, oh my God, I'm stuck in Puerto Vallarta because El
yeah.
Mencho was killed.
I'm the worst in a crisis, just so you know. During the fire, though, remarkably, I was pretty calm. I even documented a bunch of the experience, which I shared on social media. But in like 9/11, I was a lunatic. I was screaming my head off in front of my 4-year-old. I did not keep it together. And yeah, I'm not the person you
I
want.
think you're allowed under those circumstances.
To.
Let's talk about your show, the Ricki Lake Show, which I loved. I was obsessed with talk shows back then. What do you think you did differently from all the other hosts that allowed you to connect so
I know
deeply with
exactly
your
what
audiences?
we did. We were we were the voice of a younger generation. And it was a conscious decision on the part of Garth Anseer, who was the creator of my show. He was kind of he was Brandon Tartikoff's like protege, if you remember, like
NBC, sure. Yeah, yeah.
NBC. So he worked under him, and he was kind of this like idiot savant genius programmer, and so he was at the time, this is in the early 90s, like 92 is when I did the pilot, 92. And then he looked at talk shows. Oprah, Phil Donahue, Sally Jesse, they all skewed over the age of 50. That was their bread and butter. And so he was like, well, maybe I should just look into getting a younger host and bring in a younger, to get that younger audience. So I was literally cast into the role of young talk show host. I did the pilot when I was 23, and it got picked up, and it was syndicated. So it's different than like a network show. It's syndicated. So it's all different in all different cities. Most of the time periods were called early fringe, which is like after school, before dinner time. So that sweet spot was really 5 o'clock hour. And, our topics were all the same that Oprah were doing, but they were always taken from the younger person's perspective. So Oprah would do, my daughter, it doesn't get me or whatever. So my mom doesn't understand, where I'm coming from. So it was always the younger person. And so it was just the right kind of secret sauce for that generation. Just like we gave them a platform, we gave a voice to the marginalized and the misunderstood and the gay community and mixed race couples and things that really weren't being talked about back then, And so there was a level of respect with my show and a level of it was a party. It wasn't like a gotcha, salacious, gross, icky feeling. It was like everyone's there to have a good time. Everyone's there to be heard and represented. And that, it was a phenomenon. Like it was just like the day one, it just was on this rise. And I did it for 11 years, and it was 9/11, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I had to finish my contract. I couldn't just quit my show, but I remember having to go back 2 days after 9/11, going back and shooting the dumbest topic, like my baby daddy thinks I'm a hoochie mama, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding? The National Guard in my neighborhood, and I'm like doing this. Like this is what we're talking. I mean, so I just, my show was definitely like, it did some really important stuff. We had some really great conversations, and we were able to pull back the veil on a lot of topics that were meaningful to a lot of people. And I'm super proud of that. But I also love that I've been able to I didn't peak with the Ricki Lake Show. I feel like I've continued to evolve and put out work, and yeah.
And was able to come back. Was it
I came back in
2011 or 12?
yeah, 2012. I came back with, because I had a kind of a new understanding of who I was. Like I feel like I didn't know who I was at 25 hosting the show. Like what did I stand for? What did I believe in? But when I was, suddenly in my early 40s, and I'd made The Business of Being Born, and I'd left my mark with that film, it's like, well, I do have conversations I'd like to have on a different level. And I was thinking more of a Phil Donahue type of show, but the company that I went into business with wanted to do, is your dog smarter than you? We're going to find out. I mean, it just we weren't a match with the topics and with the level of content. So it was not a, went away after a year, but I won the Emmy for my work.
Mm,
So crazy because I was canceled. I was like the failed show, and yet I won for my work, which was so cool. That Emmy, of course, burned in the fire too. So
mm.
I don't have it anymore, but it's on my Wikipedia.
Well, you have it
I have it
in the
exactly.
ways, yeah, on record. You've done so many different things. Is there a Ricki Lake that is the most fun, or that you look back on and are proudest of in a way?
I mean, I like all of it. I mean, I
Hmm.
love that girl that, Tracy Turnblad, that was me,
Hmm.
it was just me dressed in 1960s outfits with a crazy hairdo. Um, I, you know, I don't know. I mean, I did Dancing with the Stars, and that
Right.
was the most incredible experiences of my life.
Hmm.
It was, everyone talks about, who goes on that show. You have this experience where you are pushed to your limit. I mean, it's not unlike a natural birth. Like,
Right.
you are
It's not easy,
so
that
much
stuff.
pain. You're having, and back then it was 2 days a week of live TV. You did the show, the dancing, and then the next night was the reveal, and you're learning all these new dance. I mean, it really was super hard. I had Derek Huff, who's arguably the best one, like the best. He's a genius beyond. He was on the level of John Waters in my mind, of people I've worked with that are true, like, gift from God. He was a master at creating not only these dances and these routines and teaching me, but also the concepts and like, he was just a visionary. He was incredible. But that experience was amazing. I didn't win. I got third place because I was never going to win. It was a war hero burn victim that was going to win. I mean, there was no way I was going to beat him. This guy, JR, he was like, there was no way. He was like America's darling. But I had an experience, and that was like, something I never thought I could do. And I became a ballroom dancer in a matter of like 4 months.
Mm.
So that was cool. Um, but I think of this, I like how I've lived, I've managed my life. I really,
Well, so it seems like it's been a lot about reinvention, which sort of fits what we were talking about before about, that old expression, life's a journey, not a destination, right? There's so many things you can do versus the flatlining through life, experiences that you get to go through. And again, that's what makes life interesting. And I think when I ask you about that reinvention, like, do you think that's sort of the key to longevity
mm,
in the entertainment business
oh,
in
it's definitely
particular?
worked in my favor. I mean, and I've gotten off on like showing people a new side of me, whether it's a physical change, like
Hmm.
losing weight on my own, 40 pounds. I lost 40 pounds on my own at 55, like, you're not supposed to be able to do that. So, you need the help of a drug or this or that. It's like, I know I did that. Like, it's like I have something to prove, I think mostly to myself, but I like that you know, turn like, oh wow, like I didn't know she could do that, or I don't know what's next. Like, I don't know what's next that I haven't done. I'm sure there's gonna be something, but yeah, but you're right. Like, reinvention has been part of the fun of this for me, yeah. And even like I have gray hair now. Like, I don't look like the what people think from the old show. Like, I look different, but it's like I still kind of, I'm aging well, and I'm just, I got it all in check. And I think I don't really have anything to prove to anybody at this point. Like, I'm just like coasting through the rest of this chapter, with my partner. And
Hmm. Well, you have been, as you've said, very open about your health, your body, your struggles over the years. A lot of people tend to keep, that inside, but I think it's very important when people, it's one of the reasons I made my documentary. It's like, there are people that go through things and keep them to themselves. But if we all did that, think of all the things in history we would never know about. We would never have firsthand accounts of anything if the people who suffered through them didn't come back and say, here's my journey through that stuff. And so, was there ever any part of that public process for you, be it the weight loss, the cosmetic surgery, all the things that you've been public about, in an effort to help people understand those things, not just about yourself, but how that shit works? in general. And by the way, your cosmetic surgery is probably going to go down in history as the best ever.
That, thank you. I
So,
agree. He's
so
amazing. I really did like I can't believe I have no you're seeing me no makeup this morning. But I don't have a scar on my face. Yeah, this brilliant doctor. I came out and talked about my facelift because I don't have any secrets. I don't have I mean, I'm very cautious of my children. I have two boys that are pretty private people. So
mhm.
don't I try to be really, really judicious with the stuff I put out about them. They roll their eyes at me like I post a picture occasionally of them. But outside of that, like, and I don't talk about their dad much. Like I'm just like I'm an open book. Like I've got nothing to hide. And like again, I think I get support, like feeling like people are rooting for me or know what I'm going through or like I'm not doing it as a service. I'm doing it because I don't want to be hiding anything about my life, you know?
Well, your life is filled with the same things a lot of people go through. I mean, I was talking to my friend Hillary Burton, the actor, and my partner in my candy store in Rhinebeck, New York.
You have a
Sam,
candy store in Rhinebeck, New York?
I do. Samuel's Sweet Shop. You have to come sometime.
I promise you I will.
Free
I
candy.
love it up there.
Yeah.
I mean,
But we were talking about Waitress the other day, the movie Waitress, and she was saying to me that Adrienne created a story that resonated with females of all generations about women who struggle, women who are in toxic relationships, women who don't have agency, women who finally wake up one day and kick the man in the ass and win in the end. Like, and when you are able to do that as an artist in one way or another to show others how you can deal with these things, and it resonates because everybody goes through it. Everybody is dealing with grief, loss, body images, whatever, aging. It's all part of life, including death. And I think people feel an intimacy with someone like you who doesn't just come on a screen, but you start to feel like you know that person
Mhm.
because they're real, they're genuine, they're not bullshitting you, they're not telling you everything's great all the time, and I think that's what separates some people from others who are in the public eye.
Yeah, and I think with me in particular with my show was in people's living rooms twice a day, every day. You're in your underwear watching me, and I'm not playing a character, I'm being myself.
I'm in
So
my underwear now. No, I'm
right? There's a familiarity when you're on TV in that kind of role, I think. So yeah, people feel like they know me and they do. There really isn't much of a separation. There's no, secret version of myself that I'm not portraying. It's like this
you
is
put it all out there, warts and all, and people respect
original.
that,
Yeah, I
you
mean, I don't
know?
know how else to be. I'm 57. Yeah, I'm not changing anytime soon. And the social media piece is such an interesting, like the devil, and it's like a blessing. It's
Right.
like I get a lot of joy from it. I get a lot of news from it. I get a lot of fear-based information, misinformation. I mean, it's all of it. But I like that avenue. Like I like what I get. I love that people are invested in what I'm going to put back on my property. I show video footage. I love that people are when they were moved to tears hearing about these pictures that were found of me. Like it's
Yes, of course.
super.
Well, look, there are people who are losing their houses in North Carolina, in Florida during storms. It's again, losing your house or having damage to your home is something that a lot of people in this country go through. So when they see people they can relate to on that level, again, when people are saying, "Here's my life," it's not all great. It's not all fairy tales and whatever. And people like that. I like that. That's how I allow certain prominent famous people into my own space, my head space, as if I'm like, they're not full of shit. They're going through crap just like me, and they're not ashamed or embarrassed by it.
Right. I want to ask, how did you become friends with George Hahn?
George, well, it's funny, George, through social media.
Me too.
It was like I think it was during COVID,
Mhm.
And I think it was when Trump might have said something like New York is a hellscape, and so George made this video, which got him everything. It was his start, where he's
Wow.
like walking around and he's like, "Look at this, New York is so terrible. It's a hellscape. What's happening here? Look, people are eating at restaurants. Oh, there's somebody hopping in a cab. It's oh my God, it's awful." And it was the funniest thing I ever saw. I fell in love with this guy just watching this video, and then and so I asked him to come on my podcast, and he did, and we hit it off instantly. I mean, George,
I love that guy.
he's like no other person I've ever met. He is
Yeah.
just so unique, so funny, so charming, so debonair. He's
Um,
the bon vivant gay man about town. That's what I call him.
yeah.
He is just classic, and it's fun as hell to hang out with him. And we become great friends. You know,
Yeah.
through
We have
social media.
dinner. We all have dinner when we're back in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a hoot.
I
Yeah.
would love it. I would love it. Yeah.
So in our final couple of minutes, I want to ask you some like big life macro questions. Like if you can go back and give your 20-year-old self, just starting out in Hollywood or in the entertainment business, some advice, what would that be? Knowing what you know now.
Enjoy the ride. Like, enjoy it and appreciate all of you. Don't beat yourself up with the parts of you that you don't like. Accept, like self-acceptance is a really hard thing, especially when you're that age. And I feel like I wasted a lot of time not liking certain parts of myself, mostly physical, but like, yeah, that was a waste of time.
What was the best piece of advice you ever got? And
Yes.
who gave it to you?
John Waters. When I was 18, Hairspray was about to come out. We had shot the film. He sat me down. I remember it so vividly. He said, "Your life is about to change. I want you to remember these three things. Always stay humble, always stay true to yourself. And if you're going to read and believe the good things people say about you, you're going to have to read and believe the bad."
It's great advice.
It was great advice. This is when everything was in print,
Right.
back in the olden days.
So when people look back on your career decades from now, what do you want them to say about Ricki Lake?
That I was a good time, that I was. I mean, I'm hoping like when I pass away that people say I lived. I truly lived, and I hope that up there at the top is that I made a difference with my documentary, The Business of Being Born.
I think that's what they'll say about you.
Oh.
I don't think you have anything to worry about.
Sure, Hairspray will be in there, and maybe the Ricki Lake Show, but really, like that, I think is of all the things I've done, it was the most, thing that was mine. My idea. It was my passion. It was my experience. It was, it was something that really, really mattered to me, and to see it come to fruition and actually continue. It never got picked up by a big. It was just like a little movie that just keeps educating. And it's taught in like colleges and university. We went to Columbia. I never finished college at Ithaca College, and we got to speak at women's ethics class, and they teach it at Columbia University. It's just mind-boggling.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. That's part of the reason for doing a documentary, is that it becomes some part of advocacy, or helps change other people's lives, or it makes them aware of something they didn't know about before. Ricki, this was a great conversation. So much fun. So insightful.
You, friend Andy. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
We'll do that dinner with George.
Maybe a cook shop soon, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Have
Take
a great
care.
day.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye.